From Software really hit it big with Elden Ring. It's gone on to sell at least 20 million copies so far, achieving a spectacular 96 Metacritic score. It's won numerous awards, including Game of the Year, and rightfully so, it deserved it. But after putting in over 150 hours into each of Elden Ring, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom, I can't shake the feeling that Elden Ring that we know and love today would not exist without Breath of the Wild coming before it. Initially, you may think, well, that doesn't make sense. Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild are completely different games targeted for vastly different audiences. How could Breath of the Wild possibly be a source of inspiration for Elden Ring? Well, through my playtime in both games, I discovered the one unifying thread that makes these games way more similar than you initially thought. There's one thing that brings these games together, one thing that Nintendo did so amazingly well that Miyazaki said, hey, what if I put this in my game? One thing that was such a huge innovation over all the games that came before it, that FromSoft had no option but to not only incorporate it into their own game, but to add to it and improve it even further. But what could Elden Ring's developer FromSoftware possibly even come to learn from Zelda? Well, if you guessed something related to their open world design, you were absolutely correct. While frankly, they could not be more far apart in terms of both the type of players they target and the gameplay mechanics within them, they follow a very similar philosophy when it comes to their open world. Elden Ring is dark, difficult, and violent, while Zelda is wholesome, brighter, and appeals to a more casual audience. To put it blatantly, the Elden Ring that we know and love today would not exist without Breath of the Wild coming before it. All that being said, I want to preface this video by saying that both Elden Ring and Zelda Breath of the Wild are amazing games, and are easily some of the best video games ever made. I mean, they definitely are two of the best open world games for sure. This video is in no way meant to hate on Elden Ring for taking inspiration from Breath of the Wild. I think inspiration in art and gaming is crucial, and Elden Ring is a beautiful game that I still like more than Breath of the Wild for many reasons. And as always, welcome to the Yamanote Express, and thank you for watching. Breath of the Wild bases its main gameplay loop on a sense of exploration and adventure. There is no place that you can see that you can't visit. Let's take this viewpoint for example. Just from this one location you can see all these places to travel to. The sense of adventure in Breath of the Wild is unparalleled. The game that makes discovery, adventure, and even traveling fun. Even climbing cliffs is fun in Zelda, and that speaks volumes to the attention to fun that Nintendo cares so deeply about. Elden Ring is similar. There are expanding vistas that feature many points of interest that look either extremely beautiful or interesting, piquing curiosity and a sense of discovery. For example, when you step out of Limgrave, you can see the tree sentinel, the tree, a church, and a castle, each drawing curiosity from the player and slightly nudging them to go there. The game guides the player to each of these locations, and along the way you may find distractions and interesting locations. The game does this over and over again in different locations with different points of interests and different things to do. In my 150 hours with Elden Ring, there wasn't a moment where I felt something was repetitive or boring. You might be asking for proof. What makes me think that Elden Ring wouldn't exist without Zelda? There's an article by IGN that says Hidetaka Miyazaki, the director of Elden Ring, was influenced by Zelda, Breath of the Wild, Elder Scrolls, and The Witcher 3. And I'm a firm believer that Breath of the Wild is the main source of inspiration for this game, and it really wouldn't exist without it. When it really comes down to it, the main difference between Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild is the combat. As we know, Elden Ring's combat is really tight and fine-tuned, and the entire game is based around the combat. While Zelda, it seems kind of like an afterthought, and it's good, but it's not that great. At the heart of Breath of the Wild's open world is the vast kingdom of Hyrule, a sprawling land that invites exploration with its diverse regions. This sense of scale is crazy for a game that runs pretty much on a tablet. Players can stand on the Great Plateau and gaze upon the distant spires of Hyrule Castle, a tangible reminder of the game's open-ended nature. Traversing this expansive world is made possible through Link's ability to climb nearly any surface. Mountains, cliffs, and even towers become opportunities for exploration rather than barriers. This newfound freedom transforms the traditional notion of boundaries, encouraging players to chart their own course through the vast wilderness. Climbing also introduces a vertical dimension to the exploration, allowing for a strategic planning and unique perspective on the world below. While Elden Ring fails to provide that level of freedom and traversal that's present in Breath of the Wild, using your horse Torrent is so fun. Now, Torrent is easily the best horse in all of gaming. The movement is crisp, the agility and handling is tight and responsive, and it makes the travel and transportation in Elden Ring such a treat. One of the defining features of Breath of the Wild's open world is the absence of traditional quest structure. Instead, players are encouraged to pursue their objectives in any order they choose. Their freedom to explore and tackle challenges at their own pace is empowering, providing a sense of agency rarely seen in open world games. This non-linear approach allows for emergent gameplay as players discover inventive solutions to problems and stumble upon hidden secrets while forging their path through Hyrule. Elden Ring is very similar in this regard as well. Elden Ring has been praised for its revolutionary approach to open world design. The game is a completely open world experience with no limitations on exploration except for the player's curiosity. Players can move towards any part of the map at any given time without any external elements such as loading screens interrupting the flow of gameplay. I'm looking at you, Starfield. What sets Elden Ring apart from Breath of the Wild is the concept of open world islands. Although all regions in the game are connected, they manage to remain unique and at the same time. Each region of the game is designed from the ground up as a fully self-sufficient world with its own enemies, landscapes, and environmental challenges. This design creates a unified and uninterrupted experience for players while also giving each region a separate identity and lore. For example, Limgrave, the starting region of the game, is a green plain filled with life, with bears living in the jungles, rams roaming in the mountains, and plants everywhere. To the east lies Caelid, the land of the deadly scarlet rot and the undead, where all creatures bear the signs of sickness and death. This place looks and feels like the literal incarnation of hell. Each region houses different types of NPCs and environments that contain part of the history of the lands between. Elden Ring's open world design sets a new benchmark in the gaming industry. It encourages exploration through natural means instead of chasing icons and quest markers, like most of its predecessors. And Breath of the Wild does something very similar as well. The game comes alive when you're riding freely through the field on a horseback, peering at a landmark on the horizon you're determined to reach. What's more wild is that Breath of the Wild follows the exact same philosophy. When viewed through this lens, it becomes clear that Elden Ring is deeply inspired by the Breath of the Wild. Another thing that I like about Breath of the Wild that I can't really say the same for Elden Ring is the modular nature of the shrine system complements the open world design, allowing for players to engage with the game in short bursts or immerse themselves in longer play sessions. While Elden Ring you can play for short periods of time, I feel like it's not really built for that, as you're either exploring large areas or you're doing boss fights that may take tens of minutes. But Zelda Breath of the Wild you can just play in short sessions, you can go to a shrine real quick, you can explore a cave real quick, but Elden Ring you're usually stuck with longer dungeons or longer boss fights. In the end, both games are amazing. Elden Ring takes what Nintendo did with Breath of the Wild and turns it into a game that is grittier and focused on combat for a more hardcore audience. Nintendo then took it even further with Tears of the Kingdom, perfected the formula they invented in Breath of the Wild. It's important to pay respect to games that push boundaries and pave the way for other games to also push boundaries even further. Breath of the Wild was a true groundbreaking moment in gaming, as it innovated on the concept of the open world in a time where open world games were getting stale with repetitiveness and constant waypoint chasing. Just see any Ubisoft open world game in the last decade, and you can see the classic Ubisoft formula in action. It took a true groundbreaking moment like Zelda to push a boundary that had been stale for decades. This video is in no way meant to downplay Elden Ring for taking inspiration from Zelda. Taking inspiration and also further improving and expanding on the ideas of others is human nature and is the reason why we as a society progress. But after playing these games, I thought it was necessary to outline the importance of these games to the gaming industry. Elden Ring and the Zelda games are truly once-in-a-lifetime video games that I could not recommend you play them enough. I want to thank everyone for the support. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like or a dislike if you didn't like it. Be sure to comment if you have any suggestions or want to give your input. Subscribe, and thank you for watching another Yamanote Express video. See you in the next one.